Hi, welcome to Colors of Cariboo. I'm your host, Rohan Keenan.
Pottery is one of the world's oldest forms of human expression, with evidence of it being traced back over 10,000 years ago to the Neolithic era. And today, I guess that every human on this earth has come into contact with pottery at some point in their lives. A cup, a bowl, everyday items that provide function and a small bit of beauty. Today's guest is someone who combines both form and function, beauty and practicality. Lesley Lloyd has been practicing pottery in the Cariboo for decades, and not only as a potter, but as a teacher. I should know, I was briefly one of her students in my youth, and she has worked with both my mother and grandmother in the Cariboo Potters Guild. She graciously invited us into her house one fine day to tell her story, and we appreciated being able to reconnect, and that we were able to hear the tales of her life, from discovering her calling in Australia, to world trips, Paleolithic horses, and bringing all of that into her corner of the world in the Cariboo.
And a special thank you to my mom who let us use her pottery studio today and showed off a little bit of her skills and what pottery is all about. But without further ado, let's grab a chair, grab a drink, and let's get started. Welcome to Colors of Cariboo, stories of wild creativity. And that's my Christmas gift, right?
Want another one?
Well, yeah, you can never have too many bowls.
Today's episode was filmed and recorded on the traditional, unceded territory of the Secwepemc peoples, specifically the Twahalcum, or Williams Lake First Nations Band, and the Hatsum, or Soda Creek Band.
All right. So, hi, welcome to the show, Lesley. How are you doing today?
Thank you. Great. Yeah. Feeling, upbeat.
Yeah, that's always good to have.
Sun shining. Yeah.
Sun shining. We're here in your beautiful home here, and thank you for inviting us and letting us do the filming here.
Thank you
so
for asking, even. Yeah.
So, why don't we start at the beginning? Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I wasn't born in Williams Lake, but I moved here. I actually lived in Dog Creek with my parents. My father worked on the airport there, and when that was closed down, we moved into Williams Lake. Brand new houses, brand new furniture and all that. I graduated at Kalamitsa and then went to university for 2 years in Vancouver. And then my husband decided he wanted to go to Australia, asked me to marry him, and off we went. So I spent 2 years in Australia, and that's where I started potting.
Okay.
Yeah. We were in a relatively, not isolated, but, it was out of the way. It was kind of like living in Risky Creek, so it took a bit of driving to get to anywhere to shop or anything like that. So this one woman there, Czechoslovakian woman, asked if we wanted to take pottery classes in Burnie. And so we had to drive 2 hours, over a really, really windy road. And she got enough of us together and we did that, and we would go in and spend the day. And from there, when we finished that, she found us a spot on the town called Savage River where we could set up a room and do potting, and found us a kick wheel. And she and I were the only two out of all the ones who were involved that kept on. So that's where I started. So then when I came back to Williams Lake after my husband and I decided to return to Canada, a friend of mine was a member of the Cariboo Potters Guild, someone I'd gone to school with. And so she said, you should come and join. So that's what I did. And I've been a member pretty well since. That was in 1973. But, I had kids in there, and, sometimes you would have pauses.
Yeah.
That goes with
Yeah.
children, they take up more of your time. So anyway, but my husband set me up with a space always. And, he's been very supportive. So I could always, follow that passion of mine. So yeah,
that's a fascinating start to the story there. Well, I have to ask, did they want to go to Australia just because they wanted something new, or was there a reason that they wanted to go originally?
Well, my husband was a mining technologist in Canada, graduated at BCIT, and he had had done exploration work in BC, and that's what he wanted to do, was get out in the bush and do that. But he thought, well, Australia would be a good place to go, and maybe so we bought a one-way ticket on one of the P&O liners, and away we went. He had no job, nothing. So we got off the boat in Australia, in Sydney, found out all the head mining offices were in Melbourne. And so we headed to Melbourne and landed there with our suitcases and backpack in hand. And we had to turn in all of our coinage from Fiji, New Zealand, all the places the P&O liner had stopped, American, and that's how we managed to survive our first. But a job was no problem for him there. In that time in 71, it was just wide open. So he got a job hanging sheepskin. So and then got a job or an interview with a mining company, and they flew us out to Iron Knob in South Australia, and so we lived there for a year. And then he didn't really want to be in a mining, with all the white hats, he called them, and so he applied for a job in Tasmania, and we went and moved to there, and for a year there. And then we thought we should go home and, because when we got married, just before we left, we had all our wedding gifts packed up and stored. So if we would have stayed in Australia, it would have entailed coming back. And so instead we packed up all the, kept as few of the possessions as we just couldn't bear to part with, shipped our dog back from Tasmania, had to give the cats up, but so, and then we headed out, and my ambition had always been to go the Trans-Siberian Railroad. So we were going to go around Australia and then go across that in the 70s, of course, that was the route through Afghanistan. But it was expensive to do, and we were hitchhiking, and it was hot in January when we headed out, and we just gave up on that and ended up buying a car in Sydney and heading up the East Coast, and had a great time and met all kinds of wonderful people, and it was a real experience. I mean, there were floods, rain, it was a rainy season, and we had to put our car on the train, and I mean, it was just and we went through places. You'd be driving across this country in Australia, red dirt everywhere, and all of a sudden you'd see water. And you thought, okay, where's the road, right? So we'd back up and go, and we'd find a trail, and around we go. We were driving a Volkswagen Beetle.
Oh, wow.
It was like, so we got down to, we had friends still in Iron Knob, because if up the East Coast, and then we went across and we went to Alice Springs and down the center back to where we'd originally been in Iron Knob, and visited friends there, and decided, well, enough of that, we're just going to fly home. So we bought a ticket to fly home, but we could stop in all these. So we stopped in New Caledonia, we actually stopped in New Zealand and worked there for a couple months, and then Fiji for just a couple of days, and then came on to Canada. And we were just coming back to Williams Lake long enough to decide where in BC we wanted to live. And it was just easy for Bill to get a job here in construction, because he'd done that growing up with his grandfather. And I didn't want to come back here because, I tasted that wide open travel bug. But, then I got pregnant, and people were so supportive here. It was just and it was a great place to raise kids. So we ended up staying. So, and here we are. Yeah, it was
a couple of years later, and you're still here.
That's a couple of years.
That is that's a fascinating start to this journey of life that you've had there. And so you did a lot of exploring in Australia and the other parts of the world there, where I also know that you have had a bit of a travel bug there. You've gone to a bunch of different places.
Well, once we got back to Canada, and then when our kids got older, Ruth was graduating in 1994. It was our youngest child. Actually, we have a son and a daughter. And so a friend of mine was going back to Europe, to France. And so she said, "Oh, you don't want to?" I said, "Oh, sure, what the heck?" And off I went. So, and I really caught the bug there, because, I mean, Europe is just such an incredible country, continent, whatever you want to call it. And I've sort of been able to go to all kinds of different places. I mean, there's still lots on my bucket list, but you know what? I may not get there. And I would like to see more of Canada. My family, when I was growing up, before I started grade 12, Expo 86, we rode the train across Canada and picked up a car. My mother worked for the Rambler dealership here in town. So we picked up a car at the factory over there in Ontario, went to Expo 86, and then drove back in our new car. So it was, it's just to see Canada. I mean, I was a brand new driver, and my dad let me drive across the prairies, and I loved it. I love the prairies and the sky. It's just
Oh, there is something uniquely special about it. Coming from somebody who lived in the prairies for about a decade there, and
yeah,
whose partner is also, whose heart is also in the prairies too.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's, there is like, I love the mountains, but there
yeah,
is just this sense of like when you're across the prairies, it's like you're driving across an ocean.
exactly.
It's
Yeah,
it's very inspiring.
yeah. No, I just think people who think it's boring to drive across the prairies just aren't seeing it. I mean, there was a group of potters. We went from here to Medalta, which is was the big center in Canada to make bricks and all kinds of things. And they dug the clay there, and they fired all these, crocks and all kinds of stuff that they produced out of there. And they had a workshop there. So we went over there. There was 5 of us, I believe. Yeah, 5 of us. And driving back again, it's just so neat. And if you've probably been there, but in Medicine Hat, I mean, you're driving by on the highway and you go, okay, well, this is really nice. Yeah. You don't see it. If you get off the highway down into the river valley and the whole, it's unbelievable. It's just like, it was, so incredible. I really liked, Medicine Hat. It's like, it was a great experience. And I'd love to go back, but I don't want to, time-wise, it's
Yeah.
like,
If it was a little quicker to
it's a
drive.
long way to drive. Yeah. And I guess if you had other things on the way, because that's what I like to do when I travel, is sort of think about, oh, well, if we're going somewhere, what else can we do in the area? We just came back from a fishing trip in the Kootenays, and that's immediately what I think about. Okay, well, what else is there to do? And then my husband's out fishing, and Val, our friend, she and I did other things, so no, it's
This like sense of like needing to like not just go to a place but experience the entire
exactly.
place.
Yeah. No, it's a great way to do and to see our country. I mean, now everybody now, of course, is super keen after COVID, and of course now with elbows up,
Mm-hmm.
it's it's great. It should be that way. We should, see more of our own country. I don't think we appreciate our own country as much as until you've seen maybe other countries,
Oh,
but
Canada's not a small place,
no.
and is like you hear people talking from Europe. It's like, yeah, I don't want to travel to another country. That's like a 3-hour drive, and we're like, that's just you can't even get out of the province in 3 hours here.
No.
But it's I've always loved that idea, like that belief of like. And it's something I hold dear too, because I did a lot of touring and things like that across the prairies. So I've been to a lot of those small towns and a lot of those small areas, and I still want to keep going. I still would like to do the rest of the country and do the territories, do everything like that, because there's so much to explore, and like heck, even in the Cariboo here, there's
Exactly.
just so many things to see and find, and it doesn't take much to be able to get out and just have fun and find some new experiences.
That's for sure. No, it's wonderful. Yeah, and my husband growing up, he was very caribou oriented, Chilcotin, they did hunting and fishing and did all that kind of stuff here, but he had never been out of the province until I married him. And one of the things we did was I organized a trip, and he didn't even know where we were going till we got to the airport in Vancouver and found out. We flew to visit the fellow who's best man, and they lived in not Moose Jaw, Saskatoon. They lived in Saskatoon. So we flew over there, rented a car in Regina, and drove. And he had never, ever, like I say, been out of the province, So it was really a great way to, and like my grandparents lived in Saskatchewan, so in a small town. So, I'd been there. We used to visit them a couple times anyway, or my childhood. And it's just and I mean, even visiting like other cities in BC, he hadn't done any of that. But I've dragged him off to Greece and places like that now. And there's so many other places we'd like to go, but I don't know.
Yeah, the world is a big place, and
it's so interesting.
And with it being so big, so like again, you mentioned part of the reason that you came back here was because of work and partial community, and that's kind of what kept you here in this area?
Yes, absolutely. Williams Lake is just a really supportive, and there's so much to do. And, with the kids growing up, I had a friend who she had two small girls, the same age as my youngest daughter. And so what we would do is trade off. She would take the four kids one day of the week, and I would take them and all the four.
Oh.
So we each had a day. She was a weaver, and I was a potter. So it gave us a chance to have the freedom to devote a whole day. I mean, we didn't necessarily do that. Sometimes we just go out for lunch, right? But raising small children, how nice that is, just to be able to have a day to yourself to do, whatever came up. So we lived on Callan Road, and it was a government subdivision where they sold off the lots. And it was just an incredible place. It was a real neighborhood community thing that, we'd have the Christmas parties. We had what do they call them now? International dinners, where we'd go to different people's houses and have different meals. And, it was just a real great place to raise our kids. Then when our kids were, Tim was probably in grade 7, 5, 6 or 7, we came here and bought this house and moved over here. And, maintained all the same contacts, of course. I mean, school hit friends and stuff, whom I still see. And there were still lots of friends here in Williams Lake, some of whom had never, ever even been anywhere, left, I can't get over how many people can do that. I just,
I've always felt that way too. Just like, there's just like, the place here is lovely and you can always come back here, but there's still just so much other stuff to experience in the world too.
Yeah. I've always said I'd rather be a big fish in a little pond than a little fish in a big pond. And to have your kids be exposed to, a lot of different stuff too. That was because my parents started going to Mexico. And one year my son was proving a little bit difficult at that lovely age, 15. And so they took him with them to Mexico, and they traveled around and landed in this place called La Pineda, which is just north of Rincon de Guabitos, north of Puerto Vallarta. Anyway, so he stayed there with them. We flew down at Christmas, the three of us, Ruth and then Ruth stayed down and Tim flew back. So we had each child on their own with us. Amazing how we all of a sudden thought, oh, gee, there's aspects about this child that we hadn't really thought about before. One of them is very studious, and you don't have to ask twice to get something done. The other one is, oh yeah, okay, yeah, in a minute, yeah, as nose in the book. Ugh.
Don't ask my mom which one I was.
yeah, I'm sure.
Well, so like, with you being here in the community, like you've been a big prominent member of the community. Like I remember, like, because my mom was a part of the Potters Guild, and now she's back, and my grandmother too.
Yes.
And I remember going to, I think it was by the one of the when you had the portable studio
behind Colomitza.
Behind Colomitza, where you would train us, you would teach us how to do pottery. And like, it was myself, my sister, I don't know if my brother was in,
I don't think he was old enough.
I don't think he was old enough. But you've been here for, and like been doing pottery for so long. Like, how have you been able, how have you found that, doing something that's been, like, because again, part of the podcast is talking about rural artists and knowing that it's still some stigmas about art and artists and creation in a town like this. Whether intentional, it's like, I mean, it's not really intentional, but that's just kind of like, you've got blue collar workers, farmers, ranchers, truckers, and then you've got yourself just kind of be like, no, I'm a potter. What are you talking about?
Well, it's like there's nothing beyond hope, right? So this veil that they drop over us. I mean, somebody like Anna Roberts, who should be so well known all over the province. I mean, she is a remarkable potter, naturalist, all those things. And yet, probably if you ask a dozen people in the Potters Guild in Vancouver, they would know who she was. It's just a shame that somebody like that. And so I was always going somewhere to take courses. I was just, I was a member of the BC Potters Guild, and then I would see them advertise a course. And so I'd go, and I've, taken some courses with some remarkable, well-known potters. The other thing that, of course, we used to have is that Emily Carr. They used to bring potters, artists from all over, like Saskatchewan, artist potter Victor Skansky came from Saskatchewan, and I mean, just incredible opportunity to come to our community and teach workshops. It was wonderful. And, you know, anytime I had an opportunity to do something like that, I mean, when I first got back and I was just pregnant with my son, there was the Emily Carr workshop. It was a month long, every day from 9 to 4 during the week. So for 4 weeks, it was just an incredible. And we dug clay. We went to Quesnel, went to Horsefly. We were, Anna was looking for that elusive Cone 9 clay that she wanted. And so we built bricks, you know, made kilns. We just did everything from ground up rocks. I mean, the Gibraltar Mines was great. They ground some of the stuff, materials for us. And, you know, did all kinds of tests. And it was an incredible opportunity to be exposed to that, you know. And anytime I had a chance to go and see somebody else or do a workshop, I went to... oh, now I've forgotten which island it is. The one that's got the oh man, the farm. You remember? It's a vegetarian, and they grow their own vegetables and all that, and they do all kinds of health kind of stuff. Anyway, they brought this famous potter, Paul. There we go again, Paul.
I think, because I do a little bit of digging on everybody
Oh, good.
before, and I found some articles about there, including, because I've got, was it Paul Sol?
It's Paul Sodner.
Sodner, that's who it is. Yeah, I recorded the names that they had mentioned that you trained with.
Yeah, and I have a pot that I made in the workshop with him, and you know, I mean, there was just all kinds of really well-known potters. I mean, Bob Kingsmill's still going, luckily, because he's an incredible potter too. And I would just take the opportunity whenever I could. But I loved coming back here because, you know, it is my home base, and it's, you know, like I said, I'd rather be a little fish in a big pond.
Well, and there's
Or a big fish in a little pond. I had it backwards.
So I find that, like, and this is something that I've been finding with, like, a lot of the artists and a lot of the people that we've talked to in the podcast is like and we've kind of called it like something along the lines of like the song of the caribou or the call of the caribou. And it sounds like that's something that you keep hearing, you keep listening. It keeps happening here.
Yeah. I mean, there was a woman who joined the Potters Guild, and her husband was an engineer on the railroad, and they had a really bad accident. They were actually getting ready to move away, I think, at that point, because of his work and whatever. Anyway, after he had this terrific accident, a vehicle accident, they decided to stay because of that whole buildup of community support that came together when that happened. You know, I mean, it's just, that's the sort of thing that you just don't get that in a lot of, I mean, you do get it in a lot of places, smaller places, but you wouldn't get that in the city. Unless you're in some kind of a little enclave. I have a friend who lived in one of those housing cooperative things. Oh man, that was incredible because the kids could run around in the central courtyard, and everybody was in and out of each other's house. They never locked their door. It was like, I thought, if I was going to live in the city, that's the kind of housing that I would like to be able to have access to. But
well, and I think there's a good like an interesting like counterpoints to both of those is like in an area like here in Cariboo, there's a lot of times where you have no choice but to get along with the people around you. And so you've got more views and more different like experiences happening. And then in a city, and like I could be completely wrong, it's been a while since I've lived in a city, but when I was there, like the people I were interacting with were the community that I had to build up. It wasn't necessarily that like I was being interjected into a community here where it's like, oh well, I don't like you, so I don't have to worry about you. But it was like, oh yeah, I know this person, and like these are all people that I've known and built up. So I think I think both are valid and both are good, but there's different weights to both of those.
I agree. Yeah, no, it's nice to have both. I mean, because in a small community, you wouldn't have the same kind of exposure. I mean, there's incredible shows and art galleries and stuff, and workshops, you know, that you just, now that we no longer have those Emily Carr workshops, we try and bring potters in, but it's an expensive endeavor, and lots of them don't want to drive here, and, you know, access by plane is difficult, you know. So
well, and like the thing with pottery, I imagine, is like like, yeah, sure, like a lot of other people and a lot of other art mediums can be done via Zoom or something like that, but pottery is such a visceral, immediate thing that you do right there.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like complicated technique. Well, I mean, there's a lot of complicated technique in everything. Here's my both sidings, making sure I don't make anybody mad. But with pottery, it feels like, yeah, it's so physical, it's so immediate right there, and like,
You do need to have hands on, right? To, to get anywhere. You can't just learn things from watching videos or, that's all very well and good, but it's practice, practice, and
yeah.
practice. That's what it is, Yeah.
And so with this like emphasis on community, how have you found like the community been with you as a potter, with you with your work from in the Cariboo's Potter Guild and your own work, your own art shows and things like that? How have the community reacted to that?
Well, really well, actually. They're very supportive. I sort of feel like sometimes should you be just making things to sell or to give away or whatever, it's functional wear. Whereas of course sometimes you'd like to do more art. Like that's the thing about my horsehair pottery. It's not really functional in the sense that you can't eat off of it. Although I have found a product out of Australia that you can put on it. And apparently in Australia they're using it like raku where you can't, it's not food safe
Yeah.
and all that too. It's not fired high enough for the metals and stuff. But anyway, but they are apparently using with this, it's called liquid quartz, that you can actually use food safe, make them food safe. So they're usable. Yeah. But, and I've got some and I haven't done enough testing of it. But I mean, they maintain, they're using it in restaurants, the pottery and stuff. So that would be
That
really
would
interesting. Yeah.
So, do you actually mind? Because, like, I know a little bit about it,
Yes.
but I'm not sure that everybody knows about that. Can you explain, like, your specific pottery, like like your horsehair pottery, like, and what makes that different and what makes that like unique and special?
Yeah. Okay, so in pottery, there's many different kinds of firing techniques. You start at very low fire, raku, then you get to like earthenware, and then you get to stoneware, which is a mid-range often, and then you get to the higher level where you get porcelain and all that. And it goes all like much higher, but that's because of the industrial stuff that they make and stuff, toilets and all that kind of stuff. But what I do is a low fired, that's what I like doing, is the low fired horsehair. And it's like a raku, but you put your pot in a kiln and fire it to approximately 1,000 degrees. You can't have it too hot. When you take it out of the kiln, you got to have a clay that's able to withstand the shock of coming out of 1,000 degrees into the cold air. And if there's a wind blowing, don't even want to go there. It's like, anyway, and then you lay hair on it, a horsehair. And horsehair being quite coarse, burns in. It's something, I don't know if they've ever actually figured out exactly how that works. I've tried human hair and my own hair is too fine. It doesn't work very well. Other people have used human hair and it's okay, but I just like horsehair because at the time I had horses and that's where it kind of started. And I went to this workshop on Vancouver Island called MISA, which is the Machosin International School of the Arts. And this potter from Texas came up, Randy Broadnecks, and I just fell in love with the whole technique. And so once you take this pot out of the kiln, you're laying hair on it very carefully and then I also spray mine with, it's called ferric chloride, and it, I don't know if it burns it, I don't know exactly what you call it. It colors the pot a terracotta color. And so you've got this contrast of the terracotta color with the black lines of the horsehair. And some people are using feathers now. I've tried that. And some people use sugar. And there's just all kinds of, everybody's trying everything now, right? It's a great, some people use it just black and white. And if you have a really beautiful form, I think that works. But if you're just doing it, if you just get a little form like a bowl or something, it's not really enough to it for me. I love that black and tan. Yeah. That's kind of what's kind of caught my interest. I did do a commission for my husband had a dealership with Alco Railings, and the owner asked me to do a commission of a bunch of horsehair pots. And the first year I did boxes, little boxes, like a pottery box enclosed. And then so I had to do 50 of those. And the next year he wanted to do something different. So I did it and I put blue on it. Did the same idea. So the pots were blue and then burned the horsehair on it, which is really something different. And, I never really put that out there in the public domain so much. This was just kind of a commission. And then the next year I was planning, because it was a kind of a 3-year deal he wanted. I was planning on doing something maybe green or, just doing a different color and but I fell and broke my back. So I didn't do that final commission. So, but the whole idea of using different colors on it, because one of the potters from Williams Lake who went down to Arizona every year, she in those big trailer courts that people go and stay for the winter, she had seen them do it, and they didn't have to spray the colorant on. They did it more like I was doing with the blue in the terracage. So it was something that I always thought I should probably explore more, because the problem with the iron chloride that you do, when it hits the hot pot, it makes chlorine gas.
Oh, yeah.
So, when I'm doing it, I have to wear a mask.
Yeah.
I mean, we should wear a mask even when we're doing lower fired raku, because you've got heavy metals. Pottery is not it's hazardous. Yeah. Even having a kiln in your house, it's got carbon monoxide, which you don't smell, right? So that's that right away, that's a problem with. And I know many potters who have. A woman in England died, though. She went to sleep in her studio, and she was firing a bisque kiln. And it's the first firing that you have the carbon monoxide, the organic. The second firing, you got the heavy metals. So even though lead is no longer, considered safe to use, and most people don't use it anymore, there's all kinds. We use iron oxide, cobalt oxide, copper oxide, chrome oxide. All those things, when they're volatilized at the temperatures that we go to, they're not really good to breathe, And with raku firing, we're doing a lower fired, but you're still getting a lot of that fuming. And then, of course, we put them in a container and have all this smoke. And so it's like, my daughter thinks that's why I have asthma. And you know what? She could be right, because, we just didn't really worry quite so much about all that, breathing all that stuff and thinking about it. So
it's a lot to consider.
It is
a lot to think about.
And that's when it comes to pottery, that's another thing. We use so many things, like the amount of electricity, that it takes to run a kiln. I mean, it's Christy Richardson, of course, is, well-known potter, and she her husband have figured out, and they watch their kiln. It's pretty minimal, but at the same time, it is using it. And so when you get a pot you don't like and you take the hammer to it, there's all that energy kind of wasted. And I'm like, even if someone uses it for a dog dish, it's like, and to fire an empty kiln, to fire a kiln with only a few pots in it, it's like, it just kills me. I fired one not that long ago, and it was probably half to 3/4 full, and it's like, but
a real balance of that stuff, because I never even thought about because how much resources it takes to do pottery.
Yes. The one good thing about it is, if you have a kiln and the nice stainless steel jackets, and then they're lined with bricks, all that you can totally replace or rebuild. You can take that all apart and rebuild it using whatever parts still work. So that's the good news. And I mean, my husband would say I'm a real hoarder, because we have all these bricks in our big gas kiln, which we didn't go and look at out there, which we should do before you
definitely
go. All the broken ones, because we use soft bricks. They're real nice, light, soft bricks, but they're very fragile. And we make our door out of that. So invariably you're going to have breakage. It's like, and we go through, oh man, but it's just the price you pay. And so I save all those pieces, and, and really, technically I could grind them all down and mash them all up and use them for something else, right?
But yeah, but I can understand like and get that. Like, no, there's this you've created something, and understanding like the cost of that creation too is I don't think it's something that a lot of people think about a whole ton
No,
in,
no.
but like yeah, I guess something that you have to consider as being a potter is
A pottery is probably one of the worst, for using resources. I mean, like wood firing would just be horrendous, I mean, it's wonderful stuff, but oh man.
take a
And
lot of effort too.
yeah, exactly. And the resources now, we use things like lithium. Uh-oh.
Oh yeah.
As the price goes up and up and up, it's, yeah. And cobalt carbonate, that was the problem a few years ago. And then other chemicals we use, like Gersley borate, they stopped mining it because I think potters were the only, I don't know if we were the only ones who were using it. There just wasn't enough. Anyway, it's things like that. You think, holy smokes,
Yeah. Yeah, I can't say I've ever really thought about that in terms like I've thought about it in other terms of like some other arts and things like that, but yeah, never really for pottery. But yeah, that's a lot to that.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of different chemicals. I mean, and that's the other thing about pottery. I talked about low fire, which, you use probably fewer chemicals because they have to be able to melt at that lower temperature. But when you get into the mid-range, oftentimes we mix our own. So then you have to know all about, the chemical names and their formulas. And I mean, you can get into the molecular weights if you want.
Like you're an artistic
Oh,
geological chemist.
it's
Almost.
horrendous. I can see why people spend $30 on a jar of glaze, which I just can't bring myself
Yeah.
to do. It's just like, oh,
Oh, so you make a lot of your own glazes
I
by
make a lot of
scratch.
my own glazes. Yeah.
That's
And originally, the Cariboo Potters Guild, that was their mandate. They did not want to have any bought glazes, anybody. And over the years, of course, it's a natural evolution. It just can't happen. I mean, it would be nice if we still could. And Lord knows, I've got a shed full of chemicals that, if somebody wanted to make their own glazes, I'm totally open to giving them whatever they want. But, there's naturally occurring clays that are really great glazes. So Lexington Subdivision, we had a great one there. And there's that pond. This is what I learned in that month-long workshop, right? That pond on the road highway, is it just before the Blue Lake turn, I think, maybe. Anyway, it's on the left hand side, and we dug calcareous clay out of there. And that's something that helps the clays melt and form a
Oh.
glaze, which is great, right?
Yeah.
That's, as opposed to going and mining.
Yeah. Well, and keeping it, because you've also mentioned, yeah, you've dug clay in other locations and other things. That's like that's also like a really neat way to look at like local art, and because you're really making it local.
You are.
And
Yeah.
like, do you have like a favorite experience or like a favorite piece or a favorite story about like making something out of the clay that you yourself have dug?
Well, the problem, the one that I've got is actually one that I got in Australia, because in Australia, at some point, we must have gone and got some clay from somewhere. I don't remember even how, but I made this little piggy bank out of it, and it just was a beautiful clay, and I fired it. I've only bisted it. I haven't fired it any higher, so I have no idea. And I've still got it. I mean, I hauled it home. It's one of the things I couldn't leave behind. And so that, it's just kind of an interesting, like when you feel clay, if it's a really nice, smooth clay, it's just a beautiful. And some of the clays that we buy, and when you burnish them, which is just rubbing them to seal the particles, they're wonderful. They're beautiful. And that's a very tactile thing that I really enjoy doing. Yeah. But it's not something that a lot of people understand. Like, of course, Anna was so into that and really promoted it and had beautiful pieces. But it was hard. Like, I know somebody who bought a piece of hers and wanted to use it for like a butter dish, right? This burnished. And technically you probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
But at the same time, oh, well, yeah, I think they probably went ahead and did it anyway.
Yeah, people will do what people want to do.
Yeah, exactly. So
There was something I was going to ask about. So
digging, doing.
yeah, digging, working with clay. Yeah, working with clay in the area here. And I know we briefly touched upon like the community involvement. So you, and like I know we just we talked about a little bit about like you training young people like myself, and so like that's something that's been important for you as well, to train new potters, young, old, and everybody else.
Yeah, when I first came back to Williams Lake, of course, and joined the Potters Guild, Drew Hodgson, Sonia Cornwell's sister, she was a potter, and she was teaching kids classes. My daughter went and did some with her, and so one time she said to me, do you want to come and help? And I know now that what she was doing was looking for that replacement person, because I'm now doing the same, thinking, would you like to come and help? And because it's such a great thing for kids to do. How much and how enjoyable that was, and you can make something, and your parents can have that forever. I have had kids who made an incredible number of pieces, and their mothers go, oh, when am I going to do this? I say, put it out in the garden. It's perfect. It's still there, and it's part of, but it doesn't have to be front and center in your house. It's like, because they do make a lot of neat things, but so with Drew, I started doing that, and then eventually she stepped back more and more, and I did it in Wells, and I've done it, in different locations around Williams Lake, and I really do enjoy it. At one point, I said to a friend of mine, I said, I think I'm a better teacher than I am potter, because I just really do enjoy that, But then at one point, I was doing it for the Child Development Center, and a couple of times I thought, I'm maybe getting too old for this. I'm getting a little cranky. It's like,
sometimes that can happen.
Yeah.
Leading, doing some workshop stuff myself. It's like, nope, this is
okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Step back.
Okay, cool. We're ready. Just don't do anything else.
Well, I remember doing one. I did a lot of homeschool kids, right? And which is great. And it was really fun. And the kids generally are really good. But what I found was that the parents wanted to be there too. And when my rule was, you're not allowed to tell the kid how to do it. You're not allowed to say, oh, you should make it pink. Oh, you should do this. Or, I would say, this is their piece. They can do whatever they want. And even in the kids, I would say, look, you're not allowed to say, ooh, I don't like that. If you don't like it, just put it to one side and come back to it later and see, maybe you've changed your mind. Maybe you've got a new idea. But with the homeschool parents, oftentimes the parents would come in, and there'd be two adults standing there talking in the room, and I'm trying to teach kids, and I'm like, this is why I like kids. Go away. And kids listen way better. I raku with kids, and they listen and do what they're told. With adults, they think they know. It's like, just put it there when I tell you to.
Sometimes a little bit of that knowledge and awareness is a very dangerous thing.
Very dangerous.
Especially if you're trying to teach people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, it's been really interesting. Yeah. But I do love teaching kids. Yeah. And I don't know whether I still have the energy to do it, but I would like to think I might, but
it's not an easy thing, teaching and educating and passing along knowledge, and and especially competing with all of the stuff that you have to compete with these days too. But there's still because as we mentioned before, we had there was another art class or something with the other kids, and the stuff the kids were doing there was really neat, and just being able to see how excited kids were still for doing that.
Yes. Yeah. And, you can get, I once taught a class up in Wells, and there were a couple of boys there, and they're from the Chilcotin. And, they were pretty used to being just free and do what they want. And, you come into a classroom situation and you want them to. So I had a friend with me, actually, and there would have been probably 7 or 8 kids in the class. And these 2 boys, she kind of went and worked with them a bit, right? One of them said to her, are you a counselor? Do you work for social services? And because she just had the ability to talk to them, and the things that those 2 boys made, they were great. Yeah. They were absolutely sometimes not thinking inside the box, isn't it? It's and kids don't have to,
Yeah, kids don't know where the box is, which is great. I miss not knowing where that box was, because you could just go anywhere.
Days, weren't they? When you just go anywhere. Yeah. It's just, no, and over the years, that's just been the case. The kids who are a little bit more free, or I don't want to say feral, but they just have a more naturalness about them. And they often produce the most wonderful pieces. That's, the way it is. Yeah.
And I wonder if that's something that is like how reflected that is in just like this area here in general, because you can kind of say that like, there's a lot more wild people in the Cariboo here. I think we all have a few images or like names who pop into our mind when we hear that.
Yep.
But I wonder, if there is like a bit more, maybe not a different type of like mentality when it comes to that.
More freedom there. Yeah. I mean, homeschool kids are really given a lot of, there's lots of them, and there's quite a core of them in Williams Lake, but, and they often are like that. They don't have the same, but at the same time, they also have different boxes, their boxes are, it's quite interesting sometimes.
Yeah. Kind of that like, it's almost like you want both worlds of like, I'm thinking of like the rural life versus a more urban life where it's like, we see wildness here. I imagine like, the amount of the fact that we can just walk outside and we know there might be bears, we know there might be cougars and all that stuff here, but we also might not have as much opportunity in a smaller rural area as like somebody in a bigger city, which still has its own fair share of chaos, but also has a little bit more that idea of like, there's more art galleries, there's more education, there's more stuff like that where
opportunities to
exactly. So you just kind of need to find a way to mix both of them together. And I think a big part of that is just having more education, more teachers, more tutors like yourself to teach people how to be creative and how to have fun being creative.
I've quite often gone into schools too, and done classes. I mean, when my grandchildren were younger and going to school, the teachers would ask me to come in, and we did all kinds. The last few years I haven't done as much of that. I mean, and it's such an opportunity. I mean, the kids, like we said, they can just do anything. They don't think in the same within that box like we do. It's just it's a wonderful way to think, kids, and yet being able to just go out and just be free, and just explore and do no helicopter parent.
So one thing I was gonna talk to you about because I found it really interesting when I was reading up some articles, was that your relationship with horses, and particular the relationship with like ancient horses and ancient imagery. Do you want to explain expand upon that a little bit more?
Well, I grew up with horses myself, and my husband did also, but for many years it was just me and the family who had the horses, and my mom and my sister, and we'd all just did our thing, hauled the horses, hauled hay, and did all that. And then at one point he got back into the horses, and it took off. So we had horses, and we'd done pack trips and stuff like that. So, it was very much, and I raised my horse here. She was bred and born here and all that. And, so I had that touch, like with horses. And then when I did that course with horse hair, and that's how I became a horse potter on my emails and all that. I thought, and so then I don't know how that worked. I went to Europe and wasn't exposed to any of the cave art or anything like that. But when I came back, I found out that in the same year that my first year I'd ever been to Europe, they discovered the Chauvet caves. And there was these incredible miles and miles of drawings in this cave of horses and bison and all different animals. But I mean, the horses, particularly interested me because that kind of a natural thing. I mean, my husband and Swedish horses and, all the way the horses being depicted all over the world, it's just so interesting. Anyway, so then every time I went back to Europe, it would be a case of trying to find caves, and went back to Spain and just all those opportunities. I mean, it was just, to me, it boggles my mind that people would go into those dark places and draw on the walls and, do all those things. So I try to put that into my art. I did do some pieces that were tiles, and I would do some of that stuff, the kind of the same idea that they were doing, pictorial stuff, and and I've had a couple shows where I called them out of the cave art, because that's where art really started. I mean, they don't even think human beings had a language when they started doing their art in the caves. So it kind of blows you away when you
A
think.
little bit, yeah.
It's like,
That we've been doing that art is it's such an intrinsic human quality that
exactly.
we've been doing it before we could even speak, possibly.
That's right. Or communicate. We could
Yeah.
probably
Oh yeah. Communicate's a better way to put that.
yeah, it's like,
Before we had language.
yeah, before we had language, that's it. Because oh my gosh, to think that and now, I mean, horses all over the world, how they've helped civilization, expand. It's just blows you away. I mean, if I had my druthers and I was 20 years younger, I'd like to take my idea of out of the cave art and build on the whole idea of where horses have gone throughout the world. I mean, they're all over the world, and probably not as much in Africa maybe, but just the way that they've been depicted in the art, I mean, it just is so interesting. I mean, in Sweden, I don't know that they have a lot of horses, and yet that's one of their iconic things, is that wooden horse. It's like, how does that work?
They're so like, and like horses are, I love horses. They're
Yeah.
incredible. And they're so like, and we're so tied to them.
Yes.
Like, yeah, as you said, we wouldn't really have civilization if it wasn't for horses. And obviously our ancestors before thought that they were important enough to paint miles of them in a cave before
Exactly.
we could, I don't know why I want to sing, before we could sing songs
Exactly.
or like sing English pop songs. I don't know why that was why I was
Yeah.
jumping to
It's
that. but
it's your artistic.
I guess
acting,
just trying to figure
your
something out.
your acting background coming to the fore. Right? Yeah, and that's so true. You sort of think of all the different ways all over the world. And at one point, I remember reading, and I think it was in the Cariboo Tourist Association, information about how many horses there were in the Cariboo. And it's mind blowing. I said it to my husband, and he said, "Oh no, it could possibly be." And I thought, well, if you just look around, you think about it, how many people do we know that have maybe half a dozen, maybe only one, but there's a lot of horses.
Well, and it's been part of a part of the area's culture for quite some time too. And it's horses are just neat.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they're a beautiful animal. Yeah.
So we're going to start wrapping things up a little bit more. I ask everybody who comes on the podcast the same 3 questions. So we're going to start, and you'd think, I make this comment every time I do this, that I would remember the questions.
There's only 3.
I remember them, but no, I can never remember the specific
You do
wording
realize
of
that
them.
there's 5 questions they ask if for a test for dementia. There's 5, and you have to remember these 5 things, and you can't remember 3.
So, I'm okay.
It's a question though, and these are just things.
Yeah.
So
Well, I'll start with the first question.
Okay.
So, if you could spend a week with anyone, past or present, who would that person be, and why would you spend that week with them?
It's funny because I did read that on the one podcast I've started to watch, and so I've been thinking about that, and I think I would like to spend a week with myself, younger self, and say to myself, okay, just slow down, look at things differently, and learn from, not like, just kind of change your way of thinking, I guess, probably more than anything. I was like, I was in such a big hurry when you're younger, aren't you? You just want to get things done, and you want to be here and do that, That would be my, because I tried to think of some other famous person or whatever, and I thought, I mean, there's so many that.
I think that is a brilliant answer. I don't think we've had anybody say that at all. And I think that speaks volumes to like what you've learned since then, that you would want to be able to teach that lesson to your younger self.
Yeah.
And also another point, I think the majority of times we've asked that question, it has always been somebody intimately and personally dear to that person.
Yeah.
A lot of times they like very rare, and like very rarely is it like somebody says, oh, it's just like big fame. I don't think anybody's ever said like
No.
maybe a couple of people,
Yeah.
big famous person here
Yeah.
or there, but
Yeah.
it's also somebody who's very important to them. But
Yeah.
a lot of times, yeah, it is, I find,
Closer. Yeah.
it's a lot closer. And
Yeah.
it makes me think, because I expected people to have like a bigger name or a bigger, oh yes, this person was so famous and they were such an influence on me.
Yeah.
But I've been pleasantly surprised, and it's made me tweak how I've even looked at that question myself of
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
who is important? And
Yeah.
that is,
Yeah.
knowing that you are important to yourself is
Yeah.
it's a good thing to hear.
Yeah.
But thank you for that one. That was a really insightful answer. All
Oh.
right. So,
Second one?
second question. What has been the favorite compliment that you have ever been given?
Oh man. I'll tell you, it wasn't my favorite compliment, but I got to tell you a story. When I was taking those classes in Australia, Tasmania, the teacher there was an older woman and really a nice person. And, I learned, did a wonderful grounding. And I spent all this time on this pot, and I think it was the casserole she was looking at. It was a casserole, and I had done a lid for it, and it was done with coils. And she was going around the room looking at people's stuff. It was kind of our wind up, or not a critique, but kind of, anyway, she came to my pot and she said, this is a, long pause, pleasant pot. And I was crushed. I was just totally crushed because I had put a lot of time and effort into that pot. It was not a wonderful pot by any means. I recognize that now. But at the time, the investment that I'd had in it, right? So when I think of the compliment, I mean, that just really stuck in my mind always, I mean, that was like 50 years ago, and more than 50. Anyway, so a compliment, boy, I don't know. I've had some wonderful compliments, and people, I'm still learning so much that I can't really think of a piece that I was, somebody, when my husband likes something particularly, that means a lot to me, right? It's more than, oftentimes when I first starting out was, well, what would you use that for? Because again, art versus functionality.
Yes, exactly.
It's like,
and I think I feel that one with pottery, that's like a lot more prevalent, like at the forefront there.
oh yes.
Because like at least to the
yes.
painting, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna look at this painting. It's gonna make me feel something. But
Exactly.
and you've got somebody being like, oh, it's like I made a bowl. It's like, oh well, good, you can use that. And it's like, but it's a pretty bowl. It's like it's a bowl that I put my soul in it.
Yeah. Another instance where it's not a compliment so much, but we went up to visit our friends, and they were in Tumbler Ridge, and we were driving back, and we stopped they were in Fort McMurray, sorry. And we were driving back by the dam and, and we stopped in this restaurant in Hudson Hope, and the kids were with us, and they were small, and we were sitting there, and I looked over, and there's one of my pots, and I'm like, oh, and the restaurant was luckily empty because the waitress, and I went over and I made sure it was one of my pots, because oftentimes you maybe don't recognize one of your own pots over the years. Anyway, I went over and I said to the waitress, oh, that's what, and she was like, oh, well, yeah, okay. It's like, and again, I was like, oh, but I almost, I can't remember the pot even now, but I do remember one time a fellow coming into our sales when we used to have them in the park. We used to go in Botania Park and sit out on the grass. It was beautiful. It was really nice. Hell of a lot of work with the pallets that we used for our displays. And a fellow came from somewhere else, and he bought one of my pots. And I remember that pot, and I can't remember if that was the same pot or if I just remember thinking, because he was from out of town. And it was a large pot that I'd made with coils, but it was square, and it was made, I think it might have been made inside a Tide box or a rounded Tide box. It was that shape, but it was quite a big pot. And he just fell in love with it and wanted it. And, so it was like, that's, it really meant a lot to me that like I would rather give my pot to someone who I thought maybe I have a difficulty giving my pots because I worry that they're just being polite. Whereas if they buy them, I know that they're invested in that. You know, it's like that they feel that worth something.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah. Another pot I really remember, and in a way, it was a compliment. I'd had this pot hanging around for years, and I was in the show in Quesnel, their Christmas sale called the Holly and the Ivy, and I'd gotten really low on pots, so I came home on the Saturday night because it was Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Came home on the Saturday, grabbed whatever pots I could find, and hauled them all back. And this pot had been hanging around my studio for ages, and it was a kind of a flask. You know, it was a kind of a hippie thing. You had two things that had a leather piece. It was, you know, that kind of a look. And I took it up there, and it just went the next day. And I thought, that pot has just been waiting for the right person to come along, right? It was meant to be.
Yeah.
I was like, so and that's kind of neat when that happens, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Well, and you have the chance because you're able to because you can make so much and you can put so much out there.
Yeah.
You have a chance to like make sure that like people are getting something. Yeah. I really like that point of it's like, if I give the stuff away, they might just be being polite, but if they're actually buying it, they are putting value on it because part of the value is the price that you've put out there, but part of the value is like, no, I want this. I want to like spend my hard-earned money on this to support yourself and give myself something that I enjoy. Yeah.
Anna Roberts once gave me a couple of her pots. It was again in the Botanical Park, and she'd made these two figures. They weren't truly figures, but they were suggestive of figures draped with, and I just loved those. And my husband came, and but at the time we really couldn't afford to buy them. Well, at the end of the sale, she gave them to me, and I was like, oh man, that meant so much to me. And I had them, and when you know it, they get broken over the years, and I just always felt such a loss of losing those, because the fact that she gave them to me and I had liked them so much, it was like, oh man, you know.
Yeah, a real sense of loss, a real sense of you cared about those things, and somebody cared about you to give them to you. Yeah, and especially somebody like Anna Roberts too.
Oh, that just meant the world to me. Yeah. No, I loved her pottery anyway, and it was just No, and over the years she's given me more, like various times. I mean, I don't remember something we did for her. Bill did something for. Oh, and he gone and done something with her chicken house or something, and she only had 3 chickens, or at the last she only had 1. But anyway, she insisted that I come and pick out some pots, and it was like, oh man. How can I choose?
Yeah. and just to clarify too, like Anna Roberts was like a huge part of your life in the Cariboo here. She was the founder of the Cariboo Potters Guild.
Her and Vivian Cowan brought in Kazenzik. His last name is Kazenzik. What's his first name? Zelko Kazenzik. And that's how it started. And then I think Anna probably got the bug there. And then, and kind of went from there. And she got a group of people and, eventually took off. So she is the founding member, so,
So the last question I have for you today is, what is the favorite piece of advice that you've ever been given? Or if there was a piece of advice you wanted to be given, what would that advice be?
Oh, wow. There's been so many people that are so giving of their skills and stuff. But one thing I read, and I just wish I could impart to so many of new potters, is that not lower your expectations. Have as many expectations as you want, but don't be tied to them. Like when it was really well put, when you open the kiln, give it 10 days or something, because invariably you want something to look a certain way. And if it doesn't, you just want to smash it. Yeah. But I have found over the years, and I don't know how many times this happened to me, I'll put it away and come back to it and I've forgotten the expectations. And oh man, I really like this piece now. Or look at that side of it, or look at what's interesting about that. And new potters are so tied up in those expectations. I've got one of the first pots I made on the wheel, and it was, it's rough. it's made out of the clay was just so coarse. It's for grog, they use ground up terracotta pots. So it's really rough. And I don't know how on earth I could ever even have thrown with it. But anyway, and I keep that to remind myself how far I've come. You know what I mean? It's like, and the expectations thing is like, okay, just, I mean, I've got lots that I think, but at the same time, I like to play around with them. Oh, I'll put it back in the kiln and put a bit more glaze on it and do this or do that, or, so.
It's experimentation.
Yeah.
It's
always. Yep.
It's making sure that the whole life into lemon, like life gives you lemons kind of thing, but
learning from your mistakes.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. And taking them forward. Right.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, I like that. Like, have expectations. Don't be attached to them.
No.
And just kind of enjoy the process.
Yes.
I feel like in this conversation, that's one thing to take away, is that you are somebody who enjoys the process. Thoroughly.
And in doing that, I should probably maybe recycle some of the things that I do, but I don't, and I end up firing them. But and sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes I should not have. But again, it's fun, and it's learning, and it's play, and that's way more interesting to me.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, art is playing, creating is playing, and that's what makes it fun.
There's a saying in Japanese, wabi sabi, which is apparently just letting things happen. Don't be. Like when I'm teaching, and when I teach adults, I say, okay, if you want perfection, go to Walmart. It's way cheaper, a lot less stressful. If you should learn to enjoy what happens when you're making something, because oftentimes I've did a dent or I've done whatever, and then you take it and I say, look, what if you did that or this with it? Yeah. You've made a unique place instead of having something that's mass produced. Yeah. That's what I like about So, and that's part of why I like teaching, is that whole idea of just letting things happen more, not being quite so restricted.
And I also think that's probably a really healthy way just to approach life in general.
Yes.
Things are going to happen. Just sometimes you just have to let it happen. And sometimes you take the mistakes and you turn them into something different.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. It's quite interesting because I didn't sleep that well last night. And I woke up and thought, I've been going to sleep really early. And I woke up and thought, oh, geez, this is way too early. I got to get back to sleep. And then I remembered that you're coming today, and I'm going, because oftentimes if I haven't had a good night's sleep, I'll just stay in bed and sleep for 2 hours till 10 o'clock or whatever. I'm retired. I can do that. Yeah. My husband's pretty good. But man, I was like, how can, I should have thought of this 2 days ago. Oh, well.
Well, I think you are doing utterly fantastic. There's no real wrong way to have an interview on a podcast.
No,
for the most part. And I'm very happy that you were happy to come on and you were happy to talk with us. Happy that you gave us a tour of your studio as well. It's really I really like being able to see the spaces that people work in, because again, that's part of the idea of the podcast, is like what inspires people to do the things, and your workspace is important, and the place that you practice your art is important. And so thank you for sharing that, and thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate you coming on. Before we go, is there any projects or any upcoming shows or anything that you want to promote, that you want to plug while you're here?
Well, the Cariboo Potters Guild, we haven't had a show in the station house for many years. And with Art Walk, it was really great because the Guild, normally I think this is only the second time, because your mom mentioned that she'd been in one with the Guild before, and I don't even remember it. But anyway, I've gone in by myself, right? And other potters have. This year, the Guild decided to do it as a Guild, and it was great. And then, of course, we opened it up and said, okay, but we're in a business, so you don't want to take up all their space. And then we've got 20 at least active potters, at least. And so you think, okay, so we decided that your mom and I were organizing, and we decided we wouldn't have any that weren't for sale, because we were trying to encourage newer potters to start without having a big commitment and without feeling, you don't have to be there in a sale. It's like just a casual, people walking by and seeing your stuff. So but we had some stuff come that we ended up taking a couple of not for sales.
Yeah.
And I said, we need to have a show where we have stuff that's not for sale. It's where we let ourselves just work towards, the problem with that is, of course, you have to have a curator to kind of, you know what I mean? And that's, in a group situation, it's hard to, so many of the potters have never been exposed to that kind of like critique or whatever you want to call it. And when I was working at the station house, I had to turn somebody's piece down. I'll never forget that. It was like, oh, this is awful, So, but it's a chance to work towards something, a goal, and you have a title, and then we can, fit in that. Like you got to work around. You can bend it so many ways.
Oh yeah.
So, but the station house is where we need to have a show. So that's what I'd like to see.
Perfect. So, well, hopefully when this comes out, we can use that to a little bit of pressure. Like, let's have a Cariboo Cariboo Potters Guild show.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, thank you again for coming so much on the show.
Thank you for asking me.
Yeah, happy firing. I'm not sure good luck things to say to a potter. May the clay that you work with be whatever you need it to be.
May the kiln gods be with you.
Ah, yes. May the kiln gods be with you.
Yeah.
Hello again. That was a lovely interview with Lesley, and I'm so happy that we were able to connect and make it happen. Pottery is such a unique art form, and it's still amazing to think we as a species have been doing it for so long, and it's so intrinsically linked to our own growth and evolution. Here's to another 10,000 years of working with clay, and if you get a chance to turn or throw something yourself, do it. That's how you find amazing people like Lesley. Thank you for listening today. We'll catch you on the next episode.